Ambassador Veena Sikri, do you think Donald Trump is wasting his time and perhaps this energy should be redirected uh, elsewhere? Look at what's happened in America in the last few days. Political activists and immigrants, being, uh, you know, killed for no reason, and in this deep and dark tag that Donald Trump has given to China, perhaps belongs to the situation or the environment in America at this point in time.
No, absolutely. I think Donald Trump has the situation in America is very critical now, especially after the murder of Charlie Kirk and the resultant polarization of society there. It's very difficult. But I think even in India, the roller coaster ride of India-US relations is thoroughly confused everybody over here, and today's developments have made them even more, angry because. A few days ago, it looked like, yes, President Donald Trump gave a very nice tweet about India. Our Prime Minister responded. And there was talk from the Commerce Minister, Piyush Goyal, that the trade talks are going to resume soon and conclude also very soon. But after that, we've seen that Secretary of Commerce, Lutnick, has been consistently saying, linking the conclusion of the trade deal between India and the US to India's stopping its purchases of Russian oil. But we do know this is already a red line that we have given to the US and to others, that we have three red lines in our foreign policy. One is that on trade and tariff talks, we will always preserve the interests of the farmers, the fishermen, the dairy producers, and the micro and small entrepreneurs. We will continue to buy Russian oil because that's part of our strategic autonomy in our foreign policy, and it benefits the people of India directly in their economic interests. And third is that we do not accept third-party mediation on India and Pakistan. So this is very clear. But now suddenly, again, the linkage to cessation in the stoppage of India's purchase of Russian oil, I can only see it's a complete frustration for President Trump after what seemed like a promising Alaska summit with President Putin that has really gone nowhere, and it is back to perhaps worse than square one because it's so difficult, and President Putin is now not ready for talks at all. He's calling for a pause in the talks. At one time when he was ready, President Zelensky was not, and when both of them were ready, the European Union was not. And we know that former Prime Minister Boris Johnson came in and told President Zelensky to not accept the deal that was being worked out, which was way, way better than what it is now. So, I don't know who to blame for the present state of affairs in the conflict between Ukraine and Russia, but certainly President Trump seems to be wanting to push the blame onto the European Union now, saying, you guys are buying Russian oil, this is shocking, this is bad, so please stop buying it and please impose tariffs of 100% and more on India and China. So, so far, it's just India that is being called out. And this is very frustrating for all the people in India because all of those who, have business in USA, who want the relationship between India and USA to be strong, and there are all the defense agreements, etc., as Professor Madhav Nalpat quite correctly pointed out. We don't know where it's going now with this new a tweet which is now putting the onus on the G7 and the European Union. In the European Union, we know that they need a consensus on trade policy, and this cannot be decided just by Ursula von der Leyen herself. And if you look for a consensus and a discussion among all the members of the EU, there will be many there who will not agree to it, who will veto it, and that will be the end of this, any possible agreement within the EU on putting sanctions on India or China or anybody else. And because there are many members, several members of the EU are directly purchasing Russian oil and gas through the pipelines. So it is a very, very conflicted situation, and I do not see any easy outcome to it now, except that we are here, once again in the downside of the roller coaster ride, after thinking that, yes, there could be something coming up with the completion of the bilateral trade agreement negotiations. And now we are again there at the place where we don't see any way out. In the meanwhile, we're seeing that within USA, the tariffs are beginning to hurt the economy. And I've seen figures that have come out for August that have shown inflation creeping up. For example, there's a 0.5% rise in apparel costs. And this has directly been put down to the tariffs. And this is only the beginning, only the first perhaps full month of the tariffs coming in, of the second full month. And then there's also another report saying because of the tariffs and the inflation, more and more Americans are being pushed into poverty. And there was talk that by the end of the year, maybe another 250,000 Americans will be pushed into poverty because of the high prices that will result from the tariffs. So, in the meanwhile, President Trump is saying he's pointing to the billions of dollars that are pouring into the American treasury because of the tariffs. So maybe he's thinking that will reduce their deficit a little bit. So it's such a conflicted situation. It's such a rigmarole that it's very difficult to see any easy outcome. And who can pressurize whom in the situation is really, really a very difficult thing to predict right now. I think India is very well off with its policy of strategic autonomy, and I think we're going to adhere to that, and we're going to keep up our relationships with all the individual players and the groups of countries, as we saw after Prime Minister's very successful visit for the SCO summit. And I think that's the way we'll go and see how it works out.
All right.